Vlogaday 563. Well, I started off the day by weighing myself. That didn't go super great. I'm basically the same weight I was when I weighed in last week. But it's just part of the fluctuation, right? You go up a little bit, you go back down. Yesterday I weighed myself and I was right at 200 pounds, so 201.8 pounds today. Could be worse. But it does mark the first time we have weighed in at the same weight as the week before, so here's hoping next week we've got a good drop to follow. And then I met Pushan for coffee.
Coffee time.
I guess that's it. I was running a little bit late. Sorry about that, Pushan. But we caught the metro together, came to KBU Coffee, had a tasty coffee, and that was good. Now, as promised, for today, as it is Tuesday, which means this will post on Wednesday, which makes today a right early Wednesday, I'm going to fulfill the request to pitch Agnar's Box and Couriers Off-Grid to you so that you know what the heck I'm talking about when I'm talking about these two books and everything that's coming up with them. Agnar's Box is the one that I'm currently planning on sending out to agents and publishers. I'm gonna query with it, and I'm on my way to talk with my buddy Richard about it right now because he's reading it. He's a publishing guru, and he's gonna give me a whole bunch of notes, and I figure I'll pitch Agnar's Box before I talk to him, just in case my soul gets totally crushed and I don't feel like talking about it after. And then I'll tell you about Couriers, and then you'll know both of those shelved projects that are basically unviewable at the moment, but will soon be made available. So Agnar's Box was written to be the spiritual successor to Into the Nansen, in that I wanted to do another real-time online production of some sort, but one that didn't rely on art, and that could be, I don't know, I just had a bunch of different ideas for it, and in the end it ended up becoming a novel, just a straight-up novel. The idea behind it is pretty simple. If you imagine you have two guys who team up, you take like Indiana Jones and Tony Stark, and they take all of the relics that Indiana Jones discovers, and then research them and figure out how to use their magical properties to build new technologies, and then exploit that and build an empire off of that. That's the characters involved, and the main character, the only one you really deal with, is kind of the Tony Stark character out of those two. If you don't know who I'm talking about when I talk about Tony Stark, I'm talking about Iron Man from the Avengers, or so you can imagine Robert Downey Jr., I suppose. The story itself takes place when the Indiana Jones character, his name is Brant Hold, when Hold finds a discovery that is basically too dangerous for them to handle. The story of Agnar's Box is told through his observational recording module. It's called Norm, the narrative observational recording module, but it's a vest that he's wearing that keeps track of his vitals, senses, surroundings, taps into a psychological profile, all this kind of stuff, to put together a narrative based on what it observes around his everyday experiences. So it starts with them basically plugging that in and getting it up and running. We basically gather that his partner is off finding another discovery, some other really dangerous relic, and Agnar is pretty nervous about it to find out. He's also nervous because his whole company is kind of being stolen away from him by his board of directors. There's a little bit of a hostile takeover going on at the time. He really desperately needs one of these new discoveries to come through so that he can gain more financing and maintain control of his company. That next night, he gets a phone call from Hold, who's basically saying, I gotta dump this thing. Like, they found another one. This is too dangerous for me to leave with just our staff, and I gotta go get this other one. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get either of them. Basically, everything is coming apart. It's all over. And Agnar makes the decision, being the numbers guy, being the scientist in the team, being the guy who doesn't do danger, makes the decision that he's gonna go and he's going to escort this thing back to civilization because they need it so badly. And so then the story kind of takes on, if you're a fan of movies like Jaws or like Alien, it kind of takes on that monster in the house quality. Because when he gets to the ship, there's this box on the ship that's being run by these privateers, and he's the only one that knows what's in the box. We don't know what's in the box. They don't know what's in the box. And as the box starts to deteriorate, as whatever it is that's inside the box starts to have its way with the space around it, starts to influence the people around it, we start to see just how dangerous it is, whatever it is, and he desperately wants to hold on to it and get it back to civilization, and stuff just gets weird and scary and goes sideways, and that's basically Agnar's Box. Is Agnar, his couple of bodyguards, a few assistants, and a bunch of pirates trying to figure out how they can make their payday with this super dangerous object that if they dump it, nobody gets paid, but if they keep it, who's gonna survive? So that's a little bit about Agnar's Box. The first round, the reason I had to do this heavy rewrite on it was because I never fully committed to one of the genres. I kind of tried to, straddle a couple of different genres at once, which was not terrible, but not good. And also the middle section just kind of dragged on. Ugh. The middle section definitely dragged on and was a little bit boring, so it needed to be reworked. I just dumped tons of it, shortened the book overall a little bit, and just tried to tighten it up, keep things moving, and dedicate it a little bit more to the monster in the house genre than I had before. It helped me to study a lot going into it. I was also a little bit overcommitted to the format that I had chosen, thinking of it in terms of being like another daily production. Into the Nanton was released every day. Like there was a new entry released every day, and that's kind of how I entered into doing Agnar's box. And that needed to be broken up because the chapters ended up being really long, and it was only gonna last maybe 2 weeks. And I was trying to stretch it out, make it last longer. That was another reason why the middle section was so boring. I was trying to hold to that real-time format. Couriers, then, is the book that I wrote a few years ago, and I've just had sitting around not sure what to do with it, and it's the one that we're gonna kickstart, that I'm planning on kickstarting here in a few weeks. That one is a post-apocalyptic, which, you know, means it's happening after an apocalypse, and it has a number of different inspirations to it. But the basic premise of that book is that human civilization is just kind of hanging on by a thread, and the grid is the space that's visible to the world's last remaining spy satellite. That spy satellite is accessible only by one team that lives in the mountains, a team of analysts who live in what are called compounds. And they use that ability to warn settlers, humans, the last humans as far as they know, of impending raids. We'll talk eventually. At least that'll be the plan. That is the plan. Something. Well, my walk and talk with Richard went really well. That was really encouraging. He's enjoying the first few chapters. He said after the first couple of pages, he just kind of blazed through a few chapters and had to go back and make notes, which is a good sign. It's really good. Left that really encouraged. He's hopefully going to finish it within the next week or so, and then I'll start querying and we'll move forward on the whole Agnar's box goal. Now, the bottle, there's a champagne bottle on the wall for selling Agnar's box. The goal being that this is the book that I use to both get an agent and then publish traditionally, finally, because I've never done it and I want to break into it. So I'm hoping that this is the book that does it, putting a lot of effort into it, and we'll see what happens here in the near future. Now, that's Agnar's box. Couriers, off-grid. Agnar's box is a standalone book within my world, the world that I've created. Couriers is a trilogy. And the first book, Off Grid, is already written. That's the one that I'm planning on kickstarting in the not too distant future as well. Basically, couriers are these armored motorcycle riders. They're like futuristic, high-tech, big armored motorcycles that have guns strapped to them but are also extremely volatile. Like if they suffer very much damage, they just explode. So it makes the job of the couriers very much to deliver information and get out. The information they're delivering is to an area called the grid, for warning settlements of raids that are coming in from outside the grid. The grid Couriers is largely inspired by the Enigma machine. If you remember from your World War history, the Enigma machine is when the Allies broke the German code. They knew when attacks were coming, when submarines were going to attack, all that kind of stuff. But they couldn't act on all that information because if they did, then the Germans would know they'd cracked the code and they would lose that advantage. So in the same way, in this book, there's a group of analysts that live up in these compounds in the mountains that have access to the world's last remaining spy satellite, and they're able to see every 30 minutes a refresh of a scan or a grid, the area around them. And they're able to use that information to forewarn human settlements of raiders coming in from the outside. They're these like humanoid monsters, kind of like demons that raid from beyond the known territory around them. And so they send out couriers, these huge high-tech motorcycles that are ridden by couriers that go super fast and that ride on spherical tires, so they're able to like slide sideways and pull 360s, all kind of crazy stuff. And it's their job to get out onto the grid and warn settlements of impending raids so they can defend themselves before they come in. And so the story surrounds two characters. One, his name is Anyuka, and her dad runs the analyst teams. And so she's trying to become an analyst. She's trying to earn his favor. It's kind of a coming of age story for her. She's very, very intelligent, and as she gets deeper into it, she starts finding inconsistencies in the scans, inconsistencies in how they react to the information, and starts realizing that maybe they're playing with the information and maybe they're not actually doing as much good for humanity as she was always led to believe. Because she believes that analysts and couriers are basically the last wall between humanity and annihilation. And on the other side, we follow the lead courier, who's been going out, delivering warnings, gathering information, and running the team of couriers for a while now. He's seen a lot of couriers die. His main concern is really to keep his couriers safe. And as they go out and things start to get kind of weird and bandits start to unite and do crazy things, he starts to question their directive. He starts to question what they're doing and also starts to realize things might not be what they seem. So you have this kind kind of combination of the internal moral conflict of having this information, having to analyze it very quickly, having to react to it very quickly, and then what do you do when you find out that not everything's actually being done to save people's lives? And on the other side, you have the people who are actually on the ground going out, fighting these demons, dealing with bandits, having to keep themselves safe while trying to keep humanity alive. I haven't had to pitch that book in a long time, but that should give you a good idea. So yeah, there's a lot of high-flying action and some like good stressful moments, as well as a little bit of politics, coming of age story. It's a little bit of a crossover between young adult and adult fiction, and I think it's a lot of fun. And that one's the first book in a trilogy, and I've already got the other two books planned out. I've outlined them and written up synopses because, like I said, I submitted it to a publisher before. Got great notes back from that publisher that I made adjustments for, but they ended up not wanting it, largely because they publish pretty much purely adult fiction, and they weren't really big on the whole crossover situation. I think that's a decent pitch for Agnar's Box and Couriers. Hopefully that made sense. Maybe we'll have to give it another go. I haven't pitched them in a while. But yeah, now I gotta go teach English. So if I think of anything else while I'm in here, I'll let you know when I get back out. Hello, well enough. Teaching done. So between those two books, just in case you weren't tracking, the goals are very different between them. Agnar's Box, once Richard's done reading it, is what I'm going to use to query agents. I'm going to try and get an agent. I'm going to try and get it traditionally published. It's a standalone book. I think it's going to be a fun one to have published. Good to go. Couriers, off-grid, I'm going to kickstart for a number of reasons to integrate more into my vlog. I think it's really important to give you guys a book sooner than a traditional publisher would, just to give you an opportunity to read something that I've written that's more recent than the things that are currently available, as well as, you know, just check things out, see how it goes, see how the experience is. Also because I'm teaching a crowdfunding course, so it makes perfect sense to put my money where my mouth is. And yeah, just to have the experience. I miss publishing. I'd like to publish another book. I really enjoy self-publishing. So something that I think I really enjoy doing. It'd just be a fun project. It's a lot of work, it's some stress, but it ties directly into a job that I'm doing right now anyways, like I said. So it all makes sense. I think it's a good call. And then, we already talked about this last week, but the hope is that we can sell 1,000 copies at least, if not more, largely so that it doesn't rule out the possibility of having a traditional publishing deal for the book later. If we demonstrate significant interest in it through a Kickstarter, then it's not guaranteed to help it get picked up later, but it's not going to hurt it. And that's where the goal is set for me more than anything. We'll have a minimum goal to actually produce the book, see how things go, but there's going to be kind of that underlying bigger goal, and I'm just going to be honest with you guys about that. Like, that's more the goal for me, because I don't want to hurt its chances of being published traditionally later. But either way, we'll have fun self-publishing it, and won't worry about it. If we don't make that goal, at least we'll have a good time with the experience of self-publishing it, kickstarting it, all that. So just will be fun. Once again. And then when I got here, Jacqueline handed me a letter from the prefecture, which is not good. The reason I don't know, maybe it's fine before I open this. And I was thinking about just opening it, but I was like, well, I don't know. It's because the lady that I talked to said that they'd either text me when my carte de séjour was ready, or they'd email me if they needed anything else. And the lawyer was the one that told me that the only way they reject you is by mail. So if I'm getting rejected, it's gonna be by mail, which, you know, everything seemed good. But anyways, that's why I'm a little bit like, this stresses me out. And there was no need to stress out because they literally just mailed me instructions on how to pay for I already have this documentation. They already gave this to me. So that was a nice, wonderful little moment of stress. Mail from the prefecture can only be bad news, right? French admin. Okay, well, anyways, now that we're back to assuming that everything is okay, because everything should be fine, I'm gonna eat dinner and calm down. That was, I wasn't like freaking out, but it's definitely like, oh no, I'm not expecting anything. The only thing that comes in the mail is bad. So I'm gonna wrap it up there. If you, hopefully, unless I need to clarify anything on the whole book pitches, and I could probably do a better job of pitching them as a whole. It's one of the great difficulties of being an author, pitching your own work. It's not easy, and I'll be working on it. I'll be refining it. Feel free to give me feedback on it in the comments below. If there are any questions that you have left over from the pitches, that could be a really good thing, but if there was anything where you're like, what? Please let me know. If you have feedback on how I can improve the pitches, I'm happy to take it. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do subscribe. I would love to have you on board, and we will go back into I'm feeling really good. Today's been a really good day. I got a lot done this morning. I got a lot of headway on a lot of things that I needed to get out the door. My to-do list just banged it out like crazy. Feeling great because of my feedback from Richard, and I've got the editorial calendar back up. The next 3 months planned out. We're gonna start with French Friday here. What, tomorrow? No, 2 days. French Friday is coming up in 2 days with the story of how I learned French. So if you're interested in finally finding out how I learned French, how I suggest you learn French, if you want to learn French, it's all going to be unsolicited advice on French Friday this week. Please do subscribe so you don't miss out. And thank you so much for being here in the first place. I need to go eat.